Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Paul Jay. Yesterday, we reported that the Houthi rebels in Yemen had stormed Aden and taken control of the presidential palace. Well, today, apparently, they've been driven out of the presidential palace by Saudi bombing and other supplies and armaments to local combatants who have fought the Houthis off. In an article called Proxy Morons, The Demolition of Yemen, Daniel Martin Varisco wrote, "The dream of a Yemen chosen by the Yemeni people, free of outside influence, has faded, perhaps an illusion from the start. Historically, Yemen's people have weathered civil wars, incursions, and famines, but this was largely due to the relative stability of tribal custom and local governance. Has the killing and hatred gone so far that Yemen is in danger of becoming another Iraq or Syria? I do not think so, at least I hope not. Over a millennium of tolerance between Zaidi and Shahafi must mean something. Only the coming months will tell if the proxy morons win the day, or if Yemen is given back to its own people." Now joining us from Doha, Qatar, is Daniel Martin Varisco. Daniel's president of the American Institute for Yemeni Studies, research professor at Qatar University, and an advisor to Mina Tidnigin. So what do we know about what happened on Friday? How did the Houthis take a palace and lose it so quickly?
It was probably a media stunt. Because they certainly had a lot of coverage in different media outlets. There was really no way that they could maintain that control, both because the Saudis have been dropping military supplies to Hadi's forces, the ones that are still loyal to him, and there were reports that a group of tribesmen came down from Aden as well. So it was a temporary little foray in there and getting some news, and now they're pulling back.
Okay, so give us an idea of who's who here, because it seems, people that were dire enemies yesterday are allies today, and now the Saudis have moved in with an alliance that includes just about every Arab country there is. Why is everyone getting so involved in this?
Well, there are a lot of temporary alliances, and there are a lot of different players, as you noted, and there's a lot of misinformation about them as well, because Yemen has for a long time been a terra incognita. Particularly if there's ever a report on Yemen, it doesn't go into much detail. The main player you're hearing about are the Houthis, which is a group of people, tribesmen from the north. They're Zaidi in one way, in that this is their traditional religious perspective. However, the individual who inspired the movement, whose name was Hussein al-Houthi, lived in Qum, and by all accounts I have seen, really became a Ja'fari, or a Twelver, as they're called. An Iranian Shia. He was very supportive of Khomeini. And if you look at the name of the group, it's also called Ansar Allah. It's like Hezbollah. It's very similar. There's a strong interest, at least by Hussein, who was assassinated in 2004, in what Nasrallah was doing with Hezbollah. So the Houthis are a group of people that, yeah, they're Zaidi, but they're not traditional Zaidi, and their primary motive appears to be political. You may have seen their mantra on their signs. It says, "Death to America, death to Israel, curse the Jews, and victory to God." That's not Zaidi. That's coming straight out of Iran. And then you have Ali Abdullah Saleh, the man who traditionally has said he was dancing on the head of snakes. And he is no longer in power. He was in power for 33 years. The UN says between $30 and $60 billion worth of Yemen's national budget, I suppose, over 33 years went into his pocket. And he's the real playmaker here. If he had not had many units of the army supporting him, then there is no way that the Houthis would have made their way into Sana'a.
But I understand this. The Saleh had one of his things he did while he was in power was massacre Houthis.
Yes, well, Saleh would do anything to stay in power. So when the Houthis were problematic for him, he went against them. And he sent one of his primary generals, Ali Mohsen, who then during the Arab Spring, Ali Mohsen took his armored unit, and sort of had a stalemate against Ali Abdullah Saleh's Republican Guard. You would need a scorecard to keep track of who was allied with whom at what particular point. It's a struggle for power. It has very little to do with your particular religious persuasion. I mean, Saleh is a Zaidi, okay? He went after the Houthis, who are Zaidis, and it appears as though he even sent his son Ahmed to Saudi Arabia to say, if you let my son come into power, I'll get rid of the Houthis for you. So it's a Faustian bargain on that part.
Now, the Houthis were they discriminated against, relatively dispossessed? I mean, Yemen itself, other than Saleh, is very poor.
Yes, it's a very poor country. Part of the problem is that when Saleh went after Hussein al-Houthi, who had really turned against his regime because he was, in Hussein's view, he was too supportive of the United States. When he went against him and killed him, then it made it a tribal dispute as well, because there's a tribal ancestry going on there. And, you know, Saleh tried to do almost a scorched earth policy. There are still many Yemenis who are in refugee camps because of that. And it's really hard to keep track, because you also have Al-Qaeda, which the Houthis are against, okay? And the Houthis also went against the local variant of the Muslim Brotherhood in Yemen called Islam. And now you have this group called ISIS. You have some people in Yemen saying, whether it's really true or not, saying that they are now part of ISIS. You have a lot of different players, and then there's the southern movement called Iraq, which wants to secede because they're upset at the way they were treated. It's a lot of players.
And the Houthis are also opposed to ISIS and Al-Qaeda. I mean, in theory, you would think the Houthis are actually fighting the people that are supposedly the targets of the war on terrorism.
Yeah, I mean, this is why it's really hard to figure out who's who, because the Saudis have declared the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization, and the Houthis are against the Muslim Brotherhood in Yemen. Obviously, the Americans are against Al-Qaeda, and so are the Houthis. And even though the Houthis say death to America, they have not attacked American interests. They didn't attack the embassy. In fact, they provided, some protection when the ambassador left. So it's a situation where there's a lot of rhetoric. And you asked, why did I call it proxy morons? Basically because I think everyone is acting in a moronic sort of way. There is a huge issue. I know several people have talked about it on your network, of what exactly is the support coming from Iran. The thing to remember is that the Saudis have been involved in Yemen, not only as neighbors, but they have spent millions and millions of dollars in Yemen. They've basically supported the Ministry of Education for a number of years. Iran has no soft power in Yemen. It's very new. I mean, the Houthis, by accepting, if you will, the moral support of Iran, and then by establishing a more formal relationship, for example, they gave the port of Hodeidah, who's in charge of the port, who's working there, they gave that to Iran, which of course is not going to go down very well with the Saudis. There's a lot of rhetoric on both sides, and it's really difficult to know, do the higher levels in Iran really support this, or were they caught by surprise?
And where are the students, the thousands of students that seem to have the sort of a beginnings of a real democracy movement?
They're not being heard. Some of them are in jail. Some of them were killed because they dared to say that they weren't supporting the Houthis. They have largely been left out of even the national dialogue, which was going on for the past couple of years, the one that was supposed to lead to a new government in Yemen, a new administrative structure. The students are still there, but they don't have guns.
Yeah, well, Mao Zedong wasn't wrong about where political power comes from.
No.
Just finally, what's the plan of the Saudi? What's the objective of this strategy to make sure there's a pro-Saudi government in Yemen?
Well, the Saudis have always interfered, I suppose is the right word, in Yemen's politics. They do share a long border. There are obviously tribes that go, in terms of who they're related to, are back and forth. I don't think that they have a particular interest in sending troops. I think they're trying to force the Houthis and Saleh to a negotiating table. I mean, there was that offer. It would have been here in Doha. I think a week or so ago, a couple of weeks ago now, and the Houthis refused to negotiate. And the question is, will the bombing inspire them or lead them to negotiate, or will it just make them, more angry and they will refuse to negotiate? I have no idea.
But is there a just cause here, in the sense that the Houthis have a legitimate reason for rebellion?
Well, everyone in their own point of view has a legitimate reason. I can understand why the Houthis were upset with Ali Abdullah Saleh, but they were provided access. They were given representatives in the transitional government. President Hadi bent over backwards, and they were, even when they came in last September, they did not depose him. Then, of course, they put him under house arrest, and he resigned. They are incapable of ruling. The Houthis are, first of all, there are many Zaydis in Yemen who are not Houthi. Okay, not all the Zaydis support the particular Houthis. They're a northern group. The Hadramis, the people in the south, the people in Taiz, none of them are really in support of the Houthis. So they're incapable of governing, of creating a government. And they needed Hadi. And now that Hadi is gone, they're in trouble.
All right, we're going to do a series of interviews after this with Daniel, where we kind of do a modern history of Yemen, make a little more sense of this very complicated situation. All right, thanks very much for joining us, Daniel.
I'm very glad to have been here.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.